Hi, welcome to another episode. It's been a while. I've been a little bit burnt out, to be honest. So look after yourselves. Make sure you're taking the right rest and things. I was definitely pushing things a bit too far. But part of what I was doing was making this little starter kit boilerplate for ThreeJS called Threeasy. So I'm going to give you a quick little walkthrough of how that works now. It's nothing against ThreeJS. ThreeJS is amazing. There's just an awful lot of boilerplate that you end up having to do every time. And you see a lot of people who have their own little kind of starter kit. They all work a bit differently, and there's no cohesion there across the industry. Say, for example, Ruby on Rails is a set way of working. So if you start working somewhere that already has Ruby, you kind of know how the project works. So this maybe doesn't go that far, but it's starting to look in that direction with Three.js. So enough talking. I'm just going to go through the first few examples and bits of instruction in the talks and just give you a general little look around. So let's get a quick start going. So this is if we wanted to make a full-on proper project. So I'm going to open my terminal, which I think is going to open up on the wrong screen. Oh no, it's over there. Cool. And where will we put it? Just jump to the desktop. Cool. So I'm going to degit this starter project that I have, and I'm just going to call it Threeasy demo. So this is going to download all the starter files and Threeasy, everything you need for a Threeasy project. So that's done. So now we're going to jump into that Threeasy demo, and I'm going to open it with VS Code. We can get rid of this terminal now. I'm just going to scooch this over. I do trust the authors. I'm just going to line this up here as well. Cool. So let's have a look at what's in here. There's not a whole lot. That license actually I can probably get rid of. I think I meant that for the actual npm module. So we've got markdown file. That's kind of useless. Need to add something in there. So the package JSON is really what's interesting. So we're going to have two dependencies. One is 3, so you still have all of 3 in Threeasy, and Threeasy itself, which just bootstraps 3. Like after the first load, Threeasy's gone essentially. And Vite for some nice building and development. In the JavaScript folder, we just have a quick little Threeasy app. Index.html is just loading that app. So there's not a whole lot going on here. Let's do the needful and install our dependencies, which should be just 3 and Threeasy, and everything that they need. So let's go in there. Cool. So now we should be just able to run again start. And we've got a basic cube with orbit controls on the page. But let's look at how this works. What we might even do is just get rid of everything here and start from scratch and follow the instructions. So first of all, we need to import everything from 3. Oh god, it's so long since I've done this. Well, as 3. See, this is the thing, when you start to actually use it, you forget all these bits. Then we're going to import Threeasy from Threeasy. And then to get an app going, this is kind of a a handy example where I'm using Skypack. So this is for on CodePen or anything like that, but for production, I would tend to have those modules locally. So we've got three and we've got Threeasy. And usually you have to set up a scene and a renderer and lights and an animation loop and window resizing, all of these different things that we all have to do every time. Different projects need different amounts of customization of those, but we do the same thing every time. So now, if we just do const of app, so this keeps all of your app logic in one nice variable, rather than, say, your scene being loose in the global scope, your renderer being loose in the golden scope, global scope. That can get really messy. It can start to fight with maybe other libraries you're using. So I'm just rolling these all up in app in this module. So everything to do with Three is nicely encapsulated there. And to do that, we're just going to start a new Threeasy and we're going to pass it Three. So that's how Threeasy knows about Three. And it means Threeasy isn't locked into any version of Three. You just pass it the latest version of Three or whatever version of Three it is you're using, and Threeasy should know what to do with it. So if we even just do that much now and have a look at what's happening on this page, so there's nothing there, it seems, but where are my inspector? If I console log, so even see there you saw the canvas changing, so there's window resize already there for you, because we do have, if we inspect this, so there is that canvas element with ThreeJS running on it. We've got all that from just app. If I console log app, so we've got an instance of Threeasy, but in there we have an animator, which is my own little function for controlling animations. It's really handy. We'll look into that more. There's the camera, like just a ThreeJS perspective camera attached to app, a clock, so you can do all your timing, anything you want to do. By default, I put in an ambient light. There's a setting you can use to turn that off. There's a loader which already has Draco in it if you want to load anything, any GLBs or anything. There's a post loader so you know when it's all loaded. There's your renderer, just an ordinary WebGL renderer, a ThreeJS scene. All these things are there. It also gives you the size of the canvas. So everything that you might want to set up is already set up with just that one line. So now if we want to add something to the scene, let's just make this a little smaller. Say we want to add a box. You do just as normal. So like material is a new mesh standard material, your normal thing. Gosh, it is actually a while since I've done any ThreeJS. That's where burnout gets you. What would we do here? I have no idea what color that is. Is that even how you set a color on a mesh standard material? We will see. So the geometry, we're just going to do a box geometry. And then we can make a mesh. And now, so amazingly, somehow Autopilot is actually already learning how to use Threeasy. So exactly as it's saying, so we've got a mesh as normal. And then you add it to the scene that's in the app. And we should have, hey, there is a cube. And so what often frustrates me with ThreeJS and the way it tends to be in one file, we're certainly through the documentation and things not encouraged to use multiple files. So if we wanted to animate this normally, we'd have like some little animation function down here, and we'd be, if we wanted to, exactly that, so if we wanted to rotate the mesh, we'd be doing this. And imagine we had another mesh. Imagine we had material 2 and it had some other color, and we had a second geometry and a second mesh, and we added them to the scene. And then we might do a mesh 2 rotation on Y. And that would all, I shouldn't have saved that because that's going to break, but that would all start to get really clunky because see, we've defined 2 here and we've defined the first one here. And this animation, you've got to jump over the code around about the second box to get to it here in this animation. That always frustrated me a lot. So what I've done is made this animation function. So the app has an animator, and you can add functions to it. You just pass them in, and they're scoped to this scope. So we can just say mesh.rotation. Or can we? Yes, we can. There it is, rotating. Sorry, I should have changed these as well. And maybe I'll move them a little bit. So they should be beside each other now. Cool. So you can see the mesh rotating there. And then if we wanted to do something similar for mesh 2, app.animator, oops, animator.add, and we would say mesh 2, rotation Y. And you can see how that's starting to make more sense. We've got everything to do with the first mesh here, all of it, including the animation, and everything to do with the second one here. What that starts to lend to is really being able to separate your code nicely. So with that, I came up with the idea of having actual components. Threeasy components. So you can import a Threeasy component and it will automatically add to the app and the animations and everything. Let me show you what I mean. So say I wanted to make a box component. I like my components to have a capital letter. I still need to import 3. So I can import 3, and then I want to import Threeasy component from Threeasy component. And this gives us a class. Let me make this a little smaller here. So we're going to export. See, it's already learning. Copilot is ridiculous. So let me just copy all of this. Need to get one of those little copy buttons in there. Cool, so let's jump back to our doodle. So say we want to have many boxes, because we're really following the same pattern over here. So if I pluck all of this, the one thing when you move to the classes is that you end up with a lot of this dotting. But what we can say is this dot mat get our geo, do the same. And again with the mesh. And then rather than having to add things here, we can actually just pass this to the animation function. And we do need to do a this.app. So this gets us a box. If you've seen some of my other videos where I'm talking about controlling multiple items, when I made that video, I just felt like it wasn't good enough. So this is where all of this came from, was how do we make one single way of controlling ThreeJS? So I can now import box. My computer's very slow today though. From box. So let's just get rid of both of these for now. And I can say box1 is a new box. And I need to pass it the app. Thank you, Copilot. So there's our box. And maybe we want to pass it a few options. So we could say maybe even settings is nicer. Like at this point, it's just however you like to do it. So let's say we want to give it an X position of -1 and a color. Yeah, cool. And then in here, we can say settings.x. And we can say here settings.color. And this should still work. Lovely. But then it means if we want to set up another box, we've now made these ThreeJS objects modular, so we can move it over a little bit on the X. We can call this box 2. We can make it red. Cool. So that's the basic introduction. I feel like I've run through this pretty quickly. I will be showing more examples soon. If you actually jump to the examples section, you can see we can import textures, we can bring in GLTFs, it's basics of the components, kind of what I showed you there. There's motion graphics examples, there's animating fish, this weird little wriggle loop thing. So I'm going to start going through some of those. As always, any questions, suggestions, anything you want me to show, feel free to ask. And thanks for watching, and nice to be back. Cheers.